Rambam, today's shares on Rambam Hilchas Kiddush Hachodesh, which is almost impossible to get a share unless you're going to get into the science of astrology and everything, but we're going to talk about that. How much astrology influences Kiddush Hachodesh, or does Kiddush Hachodesh influence astrology? Or is there some partnership between them? Well, let's see. Rambam Hilchas Kiddush Hachodesh Perokim Zayin Halacha Chav Daled writes. He's gone through all the different cheshbenis of the Lavana and the Meled and everything. And he goes, how do we know all this? He says, he chachmas atkufis v'agimatriyos shechibru b'chachme yavon svarim harbe. Chachme yavon made many different svarim, and I'm showing achshav b'yad hachachamim that we have in our hands. The hachachamim have in their hands. Now, aval hasvarim shechibru chachme Yisrael shahayu b'mei hanaviyim ibnei Yisachar lo higia alein. Those svarim that come yet from b'nei Yisachar yedei bina, they knew it all. That didn't get to our hand. In other words, there is what he's basically saying is there's a knowledge of all this that comes from us, but we didn't get our hands on it today. So now we have the Chachme Yavon, we have the Bnei Yisachar. Which one do we use? We don't have the Bnei Yisachar, so what are you? Now, here's the Rambam's take on it. All these things are clear, proven. There's no question about it. And there's nothing to concern ourselves. Nobody can even doubt them. Many of us can't doubt them because we can't figure out what that's talking about. But we're talking about those who do figure it out, know that there's nothing to doubt. We don't care who wrote it. Truth doesn't matter who wrote. Incredible statement of the Rambam. Anything that has been proven in such a proof that there is no doubts about the proof, and there's no question on the proof. We don't care about Ein Onu Seimchen is supposed to be say. Ein Onu Seimchen al Zeho Ish Sha'amre. We don't care who said it. Oy Shalamne, who taught it. We don't care which professor gave it over. Ella al Harayosh and his Gausa on the proof that we've been able to prove. Matam Shanein, and the reason. That's all we care about. If the logic is good, who cares who said it? Yeah. It would seem that yes, we are relying on however, who cares? U'ma are only a vehicle to the idea, but the idea we've proven ourselves that it's correct. Okay. Fast forward to Perokim, Perek Yutes, Halacha Zayin. Rambam is Messiahim, Hilchas Kiddush Hachodesh, and he writes, Harei biyarnu cheshbenis kol hadrachim shetzrichu. You now know all the cheshbenis and all the methods all the processes that you need. B'yediyah, saraya, b'chakir seidim, how to prove the saraya. I'm sorry, knowing how you see it and the chakir seidim and therefore being able to interrogate the witnesses. So it should be noted to all who are capable of knowing. There shouldn't be missing anything in the derech ha-Torah. Don't seek to figure it out in non-Torah svarim. Dirshu mal sefer Hashem. Analyze and get involved through the sefer Hashem, through God's books, God's sefer. Vikiru achas vikiru, and read achas me'in, nothing missing. Okay, good. In other words, it's all there. Now, let's take a step back and let's see where the source of learning and making the cheshbenis of Tkufas and Mazolos are. To know all this, know everything is in the Masechta Shabbos, Daf Ayin Hey, Amar Rab Shmuel, Bar Nachmeni, Amar Rab Yechon, Aminai, Shemitzal Adam L'chasher Tkufas and Mazolos. How do we know that it's a command on a person to know all these things? Tkufas and Mazolos. Shenema Ushemartem V'asisem. Ki hi chachmaschem v'binaschem le'na'am. Eizeh chachma b'inashi le'na'am. What chachma shows us that the nations can see how we know things that nobody else knows? That's the things that they can understand. They can't understand the cheftza gavra of a mitzvah or the two dinim and anything, or the kayach and payal of things, or the deep chasidus. That's not for them. However, they could understand the geometry and astronomy and science that we have been able to develop. Okay. Just to note, there's about the one who wrote the Sefer Chassidim wrote a Sefer Gematriyos. And the Parshas Chanan on this pasuk, Ki chachmaschem v'dinaschem le'enei ha'amim, he writes, Ki chachmaschem v'dinaschem le'enei b'gematria zeh ha'Torah nevi'im miksum. That chachmaschem v'dinaschem is going on the Torah nevi'im miksum. Ki chachmaschem v'dinaschem le'enei ha'amim b'gematria Seid hatkufis or Seid ha'ibur. That's a reference to Seid hatkufis. Now, although it's Drush, it's Gematria, but Gematria is also holy, and it's no different than anything else in Torah. But I just want you to keep this in mind as we go later in. Then he goes, not he goes. And then on the pasuk of Shmartem v'asisem, however, ki chachmasem aslein. Rashi writes Shmartem zu Mishnah. V'asisem k'mashma. Shmartem means learning. Mishnah. V'asisem do. Then Rashi says, Ki chachmasem v'naschem b'zeis techash v'chacham v'navay leinam through Torah. And the same thing, the Mizrahi explains Shmartem the Mishnah says Gashmai bears Hashmiri alimud. Shmartem means learning. See is ki mitzvahs. Kol shein alav leinais. Okay. One more thing, the Meiri Masechta Shabbos there writes, and I think it's important to note, that is a mitzvah of a person is beided b'darchei mehilchis mahalochais hakechon. Person has to analyze and understand the process of the stars. It's a very beautiful chachma. The idea Isis Hashemayim, and to know all the signs of the heaven and all the different things of the constellation. Beli shum shkia, without any mistake. That's so in other words, this is what you got to do. It's a mitzvah. Okay. So now let's analyze back to the Rambam. What he writes in Perokim Zayin, what he writes in Perokim Test, seem. I mean, we can find it. There are answers, but seem just not in sync. Because the Perokim Zayin, he writes clearly that we're relying on the what the Chachmei Yavim taught us. True, we've proven it, but still, it's there. They taught it to us. And in other words, we're missing something. Where did we find it? We found it by the Chachmei Umas. And yes, we have validated it. He says, no, nothing missing from the Derech Midah Torah. And don't go looking anywhere else. So is there missing in Torah? Is not missing in Torah? Does Torah offer everything or does it not offer everything? Let's figure it out. Now, I think a little ride through the Rambam in the earlier Perokim will help us get a picture of how he looks at things. Perek Beis Halacha Dalet. Bezdin mechashem b'drachim she'et stagninim mechashem b'hem. V'yeidin alavana k'sheter b'chaydish zeh. That Bezdin uses the process that the stargazers and the astrologists have to know when the Levana is. Clearly, that's what we do. And we figure out where it is and so forth and so forth. His source is a Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, but there it doesn't say that it's the chishu, it's the calculation of the astrologers. But he does say that. Perek Yud Aleph. V'darkei ha'cheshbon yesh b'machleikes gedolos mechachmei hagoyim ha'kadmonim shechakra al cheshbon ha'tkuvos ha'man. V'anoshim chachamim gedolos v'shtabshu b'hem v'nesalmu b'hem dvarim v'nodel hem sfeikes. Again, there are different opinions between the Chachmei Hagoyim, and we take on a certain opinion. That's Halacha Beis, Halacha Gimel. If the Yerech Hayom in Bereiv Abdikas Hachakiyos Noidu Lemitzvus Hachacham Darkei Cheshbon Zeh. In other words, we figured it out. People don't know. We got some hidden sources. But yes, again, we're using the Chachmei Hagoyim. Now, we saw the Meiri brings mitzvah. Gemara Shabbos writes mitzvah. Lachshe. The Rambam doesn't bring that. Why are they bringing the minyan mitzvah? Why, if it's a mitzvah, why not? Okay, so now let's get a picture of how we look at these things. And there are various approaches to it. I'm not going to read them to you, but I'll tell you their basic tenets of what they're saying. The Chassam Sefer, who is a very vocal on this issue in a number of places, says that what the Rambam writes, that there is no question about what they say, and nobody can question when we're going to know the Sayyid Ibur Amiti, then we're going to see that that a lot of what they said is not true. There's a lot of mistakes in their cheshbons. That's what he writes in Perek Yud. It's like it's sort of, he is, bringing that out and saying that he just wrote this chibur. This is the Chassam Sefer. Now I wrote it so you know basically what you need to know now. But believe me, there's a lot more to know, and I relied on things that at this point, this is the best we know. And that's what we got to go by, which is an interesting concept, that even though there may be problems with it, but this is what we can know today, that's what we pass. So it comes out to a lot of scientific issues over the course of history, and that we paskin according to certain facts that were known on the ground, and then, things have been nisgala otherwise. Now the question is how they've been nisgala. Nisgala in a true way or not. That's something for the Perokim to decide, not for scientists to decide. Because a lot of science is, as we've experienced many times in our last couple of years, a lot of science is very subjective to the mission that it's trying to serve. But in order to those who can evaluate it, Chachamim who can evaluate it, made decisions based on this is what we know today, and this is the right thing, and there's no daifi, there's no question about it right now. Doesn't mean that there won't come a time where there will be questions, and it doesn't mean that we won't change it based on that. Obviously, depending on what we're talking about, and it's not for anybody other than the great sages to make those decisions. But that's what he's saying here, according to the Chassam Sefer. In a tshuva, the Chassam Sefer goes into at length about this whole issue, and he says the fact that the Torah writes "Ki hi chachmaschem" means it's our chachma. They do not have it down pat with all their science and all their astrology, with everything they know. And as we see, they learn things, they figure out things, and then it's all biased based on their way of thinking about the world. They can find clear proofs to the existence of God, and they will deny it because it doesn't fit their narrative. It's a fact. And therefore, that goes for everything. So he writes there, even though the Rambam and all the many great thinkers learned Kidush Hachodesh, based on what they learned from this, you should know that they don't know it clearly. Those people, in other words, they based it on that, but that's not the ultimate. That's the Chassam Sefer. Really, really interesting. The Taj Bates, in his tshuva, comes out with a few points. Not like the Chassam Sefer. And he says that the Greek astrologers, they were able to, through their scientific experiments or whatever they were using, they came to understanding similar to what we believe. Then he says another thing, that they stole our Sfarim from Bayis Sheni when they controlled us, and therefore they called it on their name, and really it's ours. Unbelievable point that he makes. And then he says that the Rambam had Ruach HaKodesh, Ruach HaOysa, of Ruach Hashem, that he was able to take out from their Chachma, that which is necessary for our Torah, so that we don't need to use that anymore. And now we have it all in our hands from Torah. So basically, Perokim Zion is telling us how we got there. Perokim Tes is telling us what we need to do. Phenomenal piece. No. So he offers a few possibilities. All the possibilities that they were mecham. Other possibility was that they stole our Sfarim. Another possibility is that the Rambam was able to do what he did. We're not able to do it. It's not our job. He did it for us. Okay. So you have the Chassam Sefer that even with all the knowledge of the Rambam and everything that he did, they're still lacking the ultimate. But that's good enough for now. And then we have the Taj Bates, the three approaches. Okay, I want to just go a step further into these things and discuss something regarding the knowledge of these, of the Chishuv of Tkufas and Mazolas. The Ritva in Masechta Shabbos, in that sugya that we mentioned before, says, Eizu hi chachma ubina shehi keneged ha'amin, zeh Chishuv Tkufas and Mazolas. Right? Now, therefore, he says a mitzvah his asegbo. We need to learn it. Now watch. It's not considered learning things that are not appropriate for us. We don't learn Chachmas Yivanis, Greek astrology and stuff like that. Is that possible? So this SMS there, that let's say I have a sugya Masechtes Brachos or Shabbos to learn, or I can delve into the Chishur Tkufas Mazolos. So this SMS, this that you're supposed to learn Tkufas Mazolos, dafke imhu ponui mitam l'Torah. For some reason, either he needs a break, or he doesn't have the Sfarim he needs, and whatever. He doesn't have what he has to learn. And for whatever reason, he's part of the Talmud Torah, then he can go into Kufas and Mazolis. If not, Tamatera comes first. Oh, he brings a medrash, Rabban Devarim. Parsha itself. It says, Leiba Shamayim. What is Leiba Shamayim? Shmuel Ama Ein HaTorah Mitzuya Bistru Logim. Sheum Nosam B'Shamayim. It's not on the astrologers. Amr L'Shoel Arei Yisrologim V'Godol B'Tei. Arei Atu Yisrologim V'Godol B'Tei. You know astrology. He goes, Amr L'Shoel Lo Yisi Mav D'Ela B'Shah. Sheyisi Ponim in HaTorah. Oh, we said, well, when is that? Obviously, when he went into the bathroom, he took along, I don't know if he took along the astrology books, or then he would, those bathrooms were outdoors, so he was able to see things. Well, keeping the mitzvah, tzarech, levatel, melimud, then the Sasemis offers another possibility. Maybe it's a mitzvah. It's like you have to put on film. He doesn't say, I'm learning Torah, I don't have to put on film. No. I got to put on film. I have to daven, I have to do other things. Same thing. Okay, so one thing comes out clear from the Sasemis. Learning astrology in order to understand Tchufas Mazol is not limud Torah. And it's either only b'shashav panim Torah, or it's a mitzvah. Mitzvah of Kiddush Hachodesh. Part of mitzvah Kiddush Hachodesh. The Shiur is a tshuva's radach. Earlier tshuva writes, Halavai, she's a Keni Hashem Lumid Michach Mesriya Seirech Al Piachesh V'Shalem Nemek Yichach Maschem V'Azem K'ma Shekozem Aram Zichrei Levracha B'Hilchas Kiddush Hachodesh. Now, punchline. The Gam He Bechlal V'Higisa. It's part of Higisa Yem V'Layla. Vav the Shmuel Yachino Lavos El V'Beis HaKiseh. Oh, Zeh B'Shar Kechov. That's the constellations. Aval B'Riyas Hayareach Shenim Tzekam L'Shenis V'Talmud B'Nuyin Olav Shit and Dav V'Chachim Seizeh. If it's for the sake of Kiddush Hachodesh, it's Talmud Torah. So according to him, it becomes part of Torah. That's what I'm saying. So we have to understand why. How does it become mitzvah Talmud Torah? It's mitzvah Kiddush Hachodesh. There's a lot of ways you can answer that. I'm going to go into the Indian of things that are necessary for another mitzvah as it becomes part of that mitzvah. But I wanted to say, we said they learned it out from Shmartem, Vasisem, Kihichach Maschem. Right? That's learning Torah. And the Chazal teach us that it means Lachshet Kufas Mazolos. It's the same pasuk. Talking about the same thing. So obviously, you could say that that's what you learn. That it's a chelik of mitzvah Talmud Torah, and it'll fit very well with the Sefer Hasidim. The Sefer Hasidim brings it in the gematria that this same pasuk means Torah Nevi'im. So the same pasuk means gematria. Say that kufa, say the Hebrew. They're both thinking of limud Torah. So the text is limud Torah is kailo, anything that's negated to knowledge of this of Torah. I need to study something in order to understand this. To study it. Now, I don't know if it means everything, but definitely regarding Tchufas Mazolos. So we have here two opinions. The Sasemis argues and says, no, it's not part of limud Torah. It's part of mitzvah Kiddush Hachodesh. And the Radach at least says no, it's part of limud Torah. I want to sidetrack for a moment and come back to this, and with that we must sign. The Sefer HaMitzvahs, Sheirish Alavi writes, a Sheirish Rishon, first root of all how we're going to count mitzvahs, and we know quickly. There's a dilemma. We have more than somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000, or maybe more mitzvahs in the Torah. Yet we have to bring it down to the number 613. So you have to find some equation that's going to make it happen. So the Rambam writes, the Bahag makes his cheshbon of 613, and the Rambam argues on him, and many of them, some of the Bahag's mitzvahs are the Rabbanon mitzvahs. Zok the Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvahs, the Sheirish Aleph, HaSheirish Yishush Roi Limnis B'chlal, Shein Roi Limnis B'chlal Zeh HaMitzvah Sheirish Rabbanon. You don't count mitzvahs Rabbanon. And you don't think that is not worth getting into this. It's 630 that was set to Moshe. How can you say it's from the Rabbanon? He says the reason I say that because many make a mistake and they count. Now listen what he says, they count. Ner Chanukah, Mikra Megillah, Meya Brachas, Nicha Avedi Gechelik, where's Mesim? V'chishu Tkufais. Shreina Asa Yom Ligma Bezal. Problem, huh? Mizeh Mash, so comes out that there is main asog on the back. Why are you counting Chishut Kufas and all that? Okay, we'll take that. Now let's see what happens. Rambam Hilchis Avel, Perokim Dalar Halacha Aleph, Nitzah Sesel Devreya, Nitzah Drabbana, Levakechem, Nachameh, Leitzem, and everything. Maybe all those things that you're supposed to do. Chelas Hamecha Kalavachosim, Sadim Chosachem, Veilan Gemilas Chasodim. Aval Pi, Shekol Mitzvah Eilim with the Vreya, Arei Mechlav after Yachkemecha. What does that mean? It can be mine, the Vreya or Mitzvah. So, in fact, the Megillah Esther on the Sefer HaMitzvah, since he holds that it's Mechlav after Yachkemecha, why does it say it's Rabbanan? Right? So he says, it's not that Mazik After is not talking about that. We learn them out from different drushes that are with the Rabbanan. And the drushes are not what the pasuk really means. Even though Kuras HaMesim, he counts a mitzvah, it doesn't, it's not a separate mitzvah. Why count them as a separate mitzvah? Right? It comes out, in other words, it's like, it's a Rabbanan that delineated that, but it's not a mitzvah for itself. And then he goes, and what he says, Ki Chishuv Tkufas Mazal Shemana V'Hag V'Lav Hashanim Al Tkufas in Kein Tzarch Shem Mitzvaysiv Hi Akosim Mitzvahs Es Al Hamez V'Lachshem Tkufas V'Lav Hashanim V'Shazei Sa Mitzvah Aleim Levada Hoysim V'Taz, because it was their mitzvah. And he says, and you don't have to bring a Rai for the Basik Mazak Basik Shomer Sachay Shavak Ashkosam. Okay, but the bottom line is he talks about whether this is a mitzvah Rabbanan. Also, he calls it a mitzvah Rabbanan. So what's going on here? So perhaps when the Rambam is saying, they could find the Rambam is that there is no chiyuv the reisik hichoch maschem. I can't. The way we're saying from the Radach, it's part of Talmud Torah. No, you want to count it as a mitzvah for itself, then it's only mitzvah Rambam. That's the word Nilchazab. Either if you're gonna count it, either it's part of some big mitzvah, it's not a mitzvah for itself. You want to make it mitzvah itself, there's no other source. You have to make it that one. Okay. If I say, and the Rambam flows beautifully. What the Rambam has been saying is as follows. He brings in many cases that Mechash Mecheshbein is like it's done, like the astrologers, because that's Talmud Torah. Yeah, you got the information that's needed down there. That's this mitzvah. It's not a mitzvah for itself. He doesn't even bring mitzvah l'odam l'chashish because that's mitzvah Talmud Torah. Part of mitzvah Talmud Torah. Then he says, since they're all clear without any question, who cares who wrote them? They're chelik of mitzvah Talmud Torah. Obviously, if there were doubts about them, I couldn't inject them down there. Torah is only emes. And then he comes along and writes, that everybody should know it, and there's nothing missing in the Torah, because there is nothing missing in the Torah. It's all part of Torah. And it's all part of Torah. It's all Torah. But, he says, I collected all that, so you have it all here. And therefore, he doesn't want you going anywhere else, because we don't know that you will be able to understand which part is emes and which part is not. That was the Rambam's job. So it comes out beautiful. This is all Torah. It's not searching outside. This is what Torah does. This is Limanat Torah. And the Rambam says, I wrote all this as now it's written as Torah. That you know exactly what part of is Torah, and that's what you have to learn. What part of astrology is now needed for Torah? Anything else you don't need to know. Okay, there's a lot more to be said here, because there's a letter from the Friedrich Rebbe that's very nice about this concept, and he says that the Rambam, that you can bring things into Torah, and they have the koyach to bring it into Torah. There's a lot of beautiful stuff here to connect there, but that's not our job here, just to explain the Rambam and Hatzlacha Rabbah.